NelsonJoypad.com bring you another original. It's freaking great.
Hi and welcome to another Grumpy Old Gamer. Today's Grumpy Old Gamer is a little bit different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an insight into what it's actually like in video game journalism. I mentioned this in a video last week where a lot of people think that you just play video games all day and that, that's the end of it, it's all well and good. It's not the case. It's not. First of all, if you want to get into video game journalism, you should truly think if you want to make a hobby into a career. Okay? Because sitting playing, playing on your Xbox, playing on your PS4 or your PC can be a really pleasant way to spend an afternoon. But when you put a deadline on it, it can take the fun out of it and it can make it feel like work. Okay? So that's the very first thing you should consider if you want to get into video games journalism. The second is that you will need to take your own personal preference out of it. Okay, so if you're writing, say, a review or a news story or something like that, you need to be impartial, which is it's a difficult thing to do. A lot of people will be sitting watching this thinking, oh, it's got to be easy, you just, write about it. But, say for instance, if you're playing, let's just say, Destiny, okay, and you don't like the game, it doesn't mean it's a bad game, okay, it means it's not to your taste and not to your preference. So you need to break it down and look at it in the sort of quantifiable and tangible terms, okay? How good are the graphics? How fun is the gameplay? Is it repetitive? How are these mechanics factoring in with this? How is the sound design? Is the story good even if you don't personally like it? How do they go about the art of storytelling if it's a game that features a heavy story? These are things that you need to look at completely impartially, and you need to take your own personal preference out of it, which isn't an easy thing to do. I've played games that I have just really simply not enjoyed, not because they're a bad game, but because I don't like them, or if it's an indie title, if you've played 20 low resolution platforming games, 20 like little sort of 16-bit platformers over the past 2 months, you're going to be getting sick of them unless you really love that genre. But you can't really take that out on the game. You can certainly mention that the market's oversaturated, but you can't really say, oh, well, this is rubbish, unless it actually is. So there's a lot of aspects like that you need to really sort of think about before you try and get into it. If you operate a blog, for instance, or a vlog, or you do let's plays on YouTube or whatever, that's all well and good because it can be opinion based. But if you get supplied a code from a developer, for instance, something that you haven't put your hand in your own pocket for, you need to make sure that you give it a fair crack at the whip. And it's not an easy thing to do. Like I say, especially if you personally don't like that genre, or if you've played a lot of games of that nature recently. So that's something to think about as well. The common misconception as well is, oh, I'll sit and play the game all day and then I'll write something in an hour. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I've said this in a couple of videos, I've said it in a couple of articles. The sort of ratio between me playing a game and me writing is about 1 to 6. So for every hour I'll sit down and play a game, there's 6 or maybe 7 hours of research, writing, editing, proofing. That's not taken into account video content, which I do a lot of the videos that go up on the YouTube page. That's not even factoring that into it. And it is very, very time consuming. To the point where if you were to work out, if you wanted paid for doing this, if you want this to be your paid job, your career, you're probably not going to get much more than you would get working at a supermarket, to be perfectly frank, because of the amount of time each article takes. There are exceptions to this, of course. If you go on to, say, IGN or Eurogamer or something like that, they will have articles that are literally 100 words about a new trailer that's come out, and then they follow that up as the day goes on. But that sort of journalism, to be honest, isn't really journalism. It's blogging, essentially. It's managing a Twitter feed. So you really need to think, is this something you want to work towards? Because that's what it is. It is work. I reviewed Dragon Age Inquisition when it came out. And for those of you that have played the game, you'll know that that's a sort of 100+ hour game. And you might only have a week to turn it around. In that particular case, I'd done it as a sort of review in progress because I felt it would be unfair to review the whole game based on sort of 50 hours of play when there's significantly more than 50 hours of play in it. But these are the things that you have to really sort of think about and wonder about. Some of these videos that I've done, the grumpy old gamers have been done at 3 o'clock in the morning because it's the only time I have between writing, editing, and posting stuff on the site. The other series that I done with Ali Begbie at Bongo, Armchair Generals, we filmed that at about 5 o'clock in the morning because that's when he finished his work. So it's not as glamorous as people think it is. It's not a sort of direct launch into stardom. There are exceptions, of course. There's YouTube channels that get 8 bajillion views a day, but they are very rare. They are not the common experience. Even big personalities like Greg Miller. He was one of my big influences when I decided that I wanted to get into video game journalism. Even he, when he was at IGN, he wasn't getting that much in terms of actual money in. That's why he had to do a lot of side projects. So it's not as glamorous as you may think if you watch, say, IGN or Eurogamer, outside Xbox, something like that. You see them at a conference, they've got, a huge stage set up, they've got multi-camera interviews, commentary and things like that. It's not as glamorous as you think it is. The beauty of it is, though, if someone is truly passionate about the industry, and I don't mean as a hobby, I don't mean, I quite like playing games sometimes, I mean truly passionate about it, they will stick to it, they will stick in, and those are the people that will go far. But before you get into it, before you decide, I'm going to see if I can write for Mouse and Joypad, or I'm going to see if I can write for IGN, you really need to think, do you want to turn your hobby, a recreational thing, into work? Because it is a big difference between the two. When you just want to sit and play Fallout 4, but you have 3 news articles that you need to cover by the end of the week. It can be, you have to put your own gaming aside. In 2016 so far, I think I've played 2 games that I personally wanted to play just for my own enjoyment. The rest of it has been fully content for the site, whether it's video content, reviews, what have you. So it's something that you really, really need to think about. Um, Writing is incredibly important, and the standards of writing have dropped significantly over the last couple of years. People that don't know simple things like IT apostrophe S and ITS, they'll use them incorrectly. They don't know the possessive pronoun. These are big issues that will hinder you. Now, if you're going to start writing, you're not going to be the best writer. That's just a fact. Okay, when you start something, you will need to practice. I would suggest writing something every day. Spend the time, write 500 crappy articles over 6 months, because then you'll get into your flow, you'll get into your own style of how you want to deliver the content. And that is when sites might look at your application and take you on. But before everything else, you need to figure out if you're willing to do the work. I can't tell you the amount of writers that we at Mouse and Joypad have interviewed who have said, oh yeah, no, that's fine, I really want to do this. And then a month later they go, nah, it's not for me. You're wasting everyone's time. Okay, and as we've covered in the video, time is a very, very important commodity in this industry. So really think before you do anything. But if you are dead set on it, practice. Read everything you can. Don't just read one site. Don't just read one author. Absorb as much as you can. And that will help you in finding your feet with writing. You never know, man. You might be the person watching this, and you might be the person to be the next face of GameSpot or IGN or Eurogamer or whatever. You might be. But for most of us, that's not the case. So you have to really think if it's worth putting the work in and the time before you try and start anything. Start a blog. That's the best thing to do, because you manage it, you have the content, and it can work as a CV. It can work as your resume. That's what I did when I started. I just went onto one of these free websites, set it up, and just updated it daily. 2 or 3 news stories a day, put up reviews, and it acted as a CV, and it shows you're serious about it. But that's kind of what you got to do. Most places are usually looking for writers. It doesn't hurt to drop them an email, if you want something. But be 100% sure before you try. That's the most important thing. If you have any questions, any queries, any comments, leave them in the comments section below. Myself or one of the other editors will get back to you on it. Transparency is the best course of action for something like this, because if someone comes in for 2 weeks, doesn't like it and leaves, it's hurting the whole industry by doing that, because all you get then are mediocre articles that have been edited 7 or 8 times. There will be brilliant articles in there dotted amongst it, but it's trying to find one noise in a hail of static. So, you know, give it the proper consideration before you do anything. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. Mouse and Joypad are always looking for writers. So if you are serious about it, by all means, comment in here, drop us an email, comment on the site, what have you. But be 100% sure that this is something you want to do before you try. Right. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.